Good everyone. I hope you guys have an amazing day. So, what I'm going to do today, I will talk about a trigger framework. Now, obviously, I'm pretty sure you guys know how to write a trigger, right? Now, there are different ways to write a trigger. One simple way, um, just go to an object, create a trigger handler, and just write a helper class, and your trigger is done, right? Which is a simple way to do it, Um, but that being said, right, that's may or may not be a great choice for your business because what might happen if you're not using a framework, then you might have to build a lot of things by yourself. For instance, trigger bypass option, right? Think about a scenario where you might want to bypass a trigger based on whatever the business requirement you have um, when you're trying to do a data migration. So excuse me, in that case, you might have to consider having a trigger bypass function in place, right? So if you don't, then you might have to build it by yourself, right? Back in the days, you used to do something called the custom settings, which is not really great. Now, that's why most of the trigger frameworks comes with it. So I've spoken about FFlib in the past. FFlib is a great trigger framework, but it does much more beyond that. But FFlick is a bit of bulky library, and it may not fit the requirement when you are dealing with a small project, right? So the trigger framework is often useful if you don't have one in place, or if you're trying to consider looking for one, right? Uh, yeah, whichever way you wanted to put it. Okay, so what I'm going to do today, I'm going to talk about mid-spanner. My apologies if I pronounce your name incorrectly, mate. So it is a framework I'm going to talk. I'll be talking about in this episode. Now, this is a very simple framework. I've used this in the past. Took me 15 minutes to upskill and start using it. That's exactly what I'm going to demonstrate. Right, 15 minutes, nothing more. Right, you can pretty much use it after this video. All right. So one thing I just wanted to mention that trigger framework, right? This one, it is heavy meta data driven. So you need to configure a few things in the metadata, right? So first thing first, you need to know how to install it. So you go to this GitHub. I obviously will put the link in the description below. All right. So and you go to this option here, and you can deploy, right? So now I'm using a free dev org. Now if I go to the setup and if I go to install package, and so hang on a second. Okay, so you got a framework here, right? Setting pretty simple. Now what I'm going to demonstrate, right? So we wanted to create a trigger on a contact object. Now the requirement is pretty simple, and it sounds like a very silly requirement. You have a contact in place. So when you try to create a contact, and if you're not trying to link that contact to an account, the trigger will by default link it to a dummy account. Now, this scenario might happen when you're doing a data migration, where lots of the contacts may not have associated account. So often, as a standby solution, you might create a standby account or dummy account which you can associate the contact to. Mind you, you need to consider the data skew into consideration, right? You should not be linking too many child record to a parent, right? Too many contact to an account. In this case, let's assume we're dealing with few hundreds, right? So shouldn't be a problem. So the what I'm going to do. So obviously you need to go to a object manager because we need to create a trigger on a contact. So we're going to do contact. Go to contact here. Um, Obviously, I'm not going to use Visual Studio Code. I just wanted to demonstrate very simple since we only got 15 minutes. Triggers, you create new here, right? And obviously, I'm pretty sure you know how to create a trigger, right? And this handler, all you have to copy, and you pretty much can get it from here, right? if you don't know, just copy it here, right? It is similar for every object you're going to write, right? Trigger for opportunity, account, contact, doesn't matter, right? So this is a very generic uh, operation, I would say. So once you do that, right, now what I'll do, you need to write a trigger now. So like I said, I give you my requirement. I need to write it before insert. So remember this, even if you're doing for a opportunities or an account or a custom object, you need to copy this line, right? Okay, now go to, so I need to write before insert. So I'll go to developer console and so I'll create a new class, and my new class, I named it as before insert, and it implements this uh, trigger action before before insert, and then you write this method that's a before insert. Now, if you wanted to do after insert, so you write a class called after insert, implements trigger action dot after insert, and public void after insert, right? So that's how it works. It's very simple. And then inside the trigger, so before insert, you write your service layer, right? So please make sure one of the thing you need to understand, never write your business logic within the trigger method. It's not a good practice. And contact service layer, as you can see that I'm actually calling the account selector because obviously I need to get the ID of an account, and that ID of an account, which is a dummy account, right? And I'm looping through this contact, and if the account ID is nil, I'm assigning the account ID to the contact account ID. Very, very simple, right? And then you have an account selector, right? So which is trying to get the ID for that dummy account. Just remember one thing, right? I've often seen in the code that people use the magic string. It's not really great because you need to create a constant class, or you can add it as a constant so that you can reuse it, right? So this is one of the things you need to understand. Single responsibility principle. Class should do one and only one thing, right? So if this is for account, it should only be used for account, right? So that's why, I don't like the concept of magical string. I do not like the concept of, duplicate functions or methods, right? I do not like, spaghetti code. Like I often say to people, right? If you're a fan of Italian food, like I'm a fan of Italian food, I will not write, I will not implement a spaghetti in the code. I will rather do the spaghetti in the kitchen, right? So that's the way you should be thinking, right? You should not do a hodgepodge code. It should be a clean modular code so that you can scale and maintain, right? Very simple, object oriented concept, right? And it doesn't matter you're an Apex developer or any developer, you need to understand that, right? It's very important to write a modular code. Okay, so that's all done, right? Now, what we have to do, we need to hook this up to the custom metadata. As I said, it's all the real magic happens in custom metadata setting. So you go to setup here. You just go to custom metadata, right? And scroll down. Just go to trigger settings, right? So go to manage trigger settings. Just create new, and here it will take you to something this. So obviously you need to give the trigger name, setting name, and I've given the before insert contact, and what object you're trying to build this on, right? It's obviously contact. So this is just like an interface which you're hooking up all your the type of triggers before insert, after insert kind of things, right? So once it's very basic setting, right? So once you do that, go back to the custom metadata type and you go to the trigger action, manage trigger action, and see new. Here, what do? You give the label Apex class name, which is the name of this before insert contact, and order. Obviously, you need to give an order, um, and context, what kind of triggers. So if you go here, it will give you the list. It's obviously the one which you created before in other setting, and the description, right? Now your trigger is all connected. It's all hooked. Now let's test it, right? So you go to contact, and I will do that. Contact. Now, obviously, create new. Um, just a name, Mr. Let me put the name of my cousin, right? Lure gone. And what I'll do, no account. I'll leave it blank, right? That's exactly what I want to demonstrate. So if you leave it blank, it will hook this contact to that dummy account. So you go to details, you go to dummy account. So 15 minutes, that's all it took for me to demonstrate, right? This is how simple for you to write a trigger action frame, for you to start using trigger action framework. Install it, start using it if you do not have one. If you got an existing one, no problem, right? You can stick to that. You don't really need to reinvent the wheel, right? So this is one of the trigger framework that's out there, and I've used it extensively, right? And this is something I recommend if you're to somebody, because as you can see, that it's pretty simple to use it. So that being said, I hope you guys have an amazing Monday. Adios.